Hello, sweet creative friend. Namaste. Welcome. I feel so blessed that our paths have happened to cross today. I wanted to share some thoughts in regards to nourishing and supporting our creativity. How can we view our creativity through the eyes of using it as a practice rather than something we need to accomplish? And how can we support our main creative works, let's say, for lack of a better way to phrase that, what we center on the most, let's say that's creative writing. For many of you, that will be the case. I know a lot of you are creative writers. I'm a creative writer, but this can go for any creative work at all. It doesn't have to be creative writing. When we reach places of feeling burnt out or stuck creatively, we often begin to ask ourselves questions like, what's wrong with us that I can't make the next thing? Why can't I be more productive? Why can't I overcome this creative obstacle and write every day, write more books, publish more books, tell more stories? What's wrong with me that I feel like I'm in this creative block? This place of writer's block, or just a dry patch in your creativity. I think that's something we all face at one time or another, and it's very easy to get to that place of burnout in today's day and age, where so much emphasis is placed on our production and how much we can get done. But I began to think about this topic differently, my creativity and the things that I use in my everyday life to support and nourish my creative practice. Began to look at that differently over the past year. And maybe it was cultivated long before that, but in the past year, I feel like I began to really lean into this idea of creativity as a practice, writing as a practice, rather than something that it's like, okay, we begin at point A, we get to point B, and then we congratulate ourselves because we did it. What is writing teaching us along the way? Who is it making us on a daily basis? What does that practice bring us each time we engage it? And when we hit those dry spells or rough patches or creative blocks, how can we not so much overcome them, but how can we understand how we got there and then nourish and love our way out of them? How can we move through them instead of avoiding them, and perhaps even avoiding the reason why we got here in the first place? I was recently watching a video about permaculture and how I'm trying to think of how to phrase it without getting into all the nerdy details, because I really love learning about organic methods of gardening. So instead of planting like all one crop, a lot of sustainable, regenerative farm structures are based around growing multiple plants together in an area, and how those plants actually help each other grow and blossom and flourish. And this particular video I was watching was delving into aspects of indigenous culture and what indigenous cultures and First Nations tribes have taught about gardening, and how these structures of permaculture have kind of come to us through these indigenous teachings and this incredible wisdom. And this particular video was about this method called the Three Sisters method, I believe. I'm going to link the video below because it's really cool. Even if you're not into farming and permaculture and gardening, it's awesome. It was detailing how, in order for plants to flourish better, they would often plant 3 types of species together, which were primarily squash, corn, and beans. They would take those 3 varieties, they would be planted together, this trio, And that's how they would plant their gardens. And each plant brought something different into the soil. It either helped to protect the nutrients in the soil, or it added more nutrients to the soil, or it protected the root system from having the sun burn all the water off that top layer of soil. It preserved the moisture element. And so therefore, all three of these plants thrived in a way that wouldn't have been possible if they had all been planted in an isolated situation. And as cool as that is for gardening purposes, I began to think about it on a deeper level, spiritually and emotionally, when we look at our creativity. So often we isolate our one creative work as its own thing. It begins and ends here. This is my writing practice. And if there's a problem with it, I need to address it within the practice. I need to figure out, why am I not able to produce as much as I want to within my writing? I need to show up every day at my desk and try to muscle my way through it, or I need to listen to more writing advice and try to glean what I can from that so I can move forward as a writer. But what about the other things growing alongside it? Those are the supports of our creativity. What are the other things we have in our lives that are growing alongside our writing, that are actually helping to keep the ground good so that creativity can then grow? I think this is a really interesting, deep concept that we can spend time just turning over in our minds and considering the implications of coming to terms with this idea that our creativity is far more diverse than we first realized. Whether it's you like building things, or you like baking things, or you like gardening, or you like making pottery, it doesn't matter. Identify some things in your life that are other actions of creation, whether it's playing fun games with your kids, or going for a nature walk and writing down observations of what you see, or photography or painting. What are some things that when you do them, you feel this act of creation springing forth from that wellspring within you? Those are some of the other things that are growing alongside this perhaps main root system, so to speak, of your writing. I know that if I relied solely upon my writing for inspiration and creative nourishment and motivation to move me forward, I would be in a very stuck place, and I don't think I would feel that motivated to create. I used to look at my writing as this ebbing, flowing source of joy that if I could write well and create well, I would be happy. And if I didn't write well, or I wasn't inspired to write in the way that I wanted to, I would be very disappointed. I would be bummed out. But what that showed me, what that taught me over the years, is that it's a poor source of happiness. It really is. When we begin to rely on our actions and what we can produce as a source of happiness, it means that we will never consistently be happy. Our happiness is not a byproduct of the things we do. The things we do should be a byproduct, an overflow of our happiness. So I think by identifying, well, what are the things in my life that are actually supporting my creativity then? Because it's not all about just how can I nourish my writing? How can I write better? How can I absorb more information so that I can then funnel that into my craft and write better? It's about what are the things in my life that are actually holding this whole thing up, this whole writing career up? My creativity, my creative mind. What is it that helps to host that? What is keeping it healthy? For me, sharing from my own personal experience, I love painting. Painting is something I can do. I can get completely out of my head. It's extremely meditative. I put on some music, I break out a canvas, and I just paint whatever I want. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. It's pure therapy. And I feel very inspired after doing it. Another is making food. I really enjoy making food, making healthy meals, making granola, or using like a food dehydrator, making fun vegan raw recipes. I like to challenge myself with that, and I find it's a really creative, fun process. That's another thing. So those are like two that I've identified in my life, that when I do these other acts of creation, especially when I feel perhaps stuck in my writing, I instantly go to, okay, what is it that's lacking in these other areas? Obviously, I'm not nourishing myself enough to feel inspired to write. So let's go back to the starting point and see, are my supports healthy? Do I need to just simply relax and create something? Do I need to get the creation ball rolling by just making something? I've started telling creatives this a lot, is if you feel stuck, just make something. Doesn't matter what it is. Bake a loaf of bread, make something. And it actually spurs those same feelings, that same rush of dopamine that we get when we have a great writing day, when we just start making something. It's like, an object in motion stays in motion. Let's just get it in motion. Let's use these other things that grow alongside of our writing, that are actually supporting our main creative endeavor. Let's use those supports and realize that this isn't just an isolated process involving writing words on a page. This is a holistic ecosystem. Your creativity is an ecosystem. We can't create from this isolated, sterilized place of, let's digest a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of advice. I don't care if you're hearing it from me or from other YouTubers or articles, whatever, books, digesting all of that and then just isolated creating good writing. It doesn't happen that way. We have to find that balance and nourishment within ourselves as creators. We have to really root down within our own spirit and take stock of, what are we doing within ourselves? Do we feel nourished and happy and like we are ready to share something? Because we can't share from a place of emptiness. So I think there is a more holistic way to look at our craft, whether it's writing or whether it's painting or drawing or pottery, singing, dancing, whatever. What are some other acts of creation that we can throw into the mix here? What are some other things that when we do them, we feel that our creative soul, the creative part of our brain, is being fueled and nourished? Can we identify those other two plants growing alongside the roots of our creativity, actually working in tandem to support our creative endeavors? And we find that as we give energy to all of those things, not just focusing on one isolated area, but nourishing the whole person, the whole body, the whole creative sphere, we begin to create more. We begin to feel that our creations are just a natural overflow from this place of creative health, creative well-being, mindfulness. So that was something that got me thinking. That idea of these three seeds being planted together, and those plants intermingling, intertwining, living and growing together, actually created a healthier environment and a better crop, more yield than one thing isolated and all of our efforts being concentrated on just making this one thing grow. What if we took a more holistic approach? If we looked at our lives through the lens of we are creators in so many areas, not just writers. We might enjoy telling stories, but fundamentally we are spirit. Can we look at this whole thing differently? Can we look at this whole thing from a more holistic standpoint of getting to the root cause and finding those things like, wow, that's actually what is supporting me, whether it's your family, whether it's creating with your kids, or taking care of your garden, taking care of your home, making something beautiful just for the sake of making it, not for showing anyone, just this is for you. This is about you and your personal process. It's made me look at my entire creative flow differently, and I feel like I'm writing more than I have in a long time in a more effortless way, because I'm not paying so much attention to one thing and the stress that comes with, I need to make this one thing happen. It's, wow, I have all these opportunities for creation and they can all support each other. And by focusing more on the whole ecosystem, I can actually grow more things than I even thought I could. So, some food for thought. I've been wanting to make this video for a little while now and just share these thoughts. I'm really looking forward to seeing what you think of them. And like I said, I'll link that video that I found below because it was a real honor to watch it and learn not only about this ancient wisdom, but to see the layers. We can learn from the earth. We can learn from so many things and see them on deeper levels other than just the physical layer. There's also that, like, wow, what if we applied that to our lives in emotional and creative ways? So many good things can come out of that. But I hope you enjoyed this message. Comment below and tell me what you think. How do you nourish your creativity? What do you think are those other supports in your life, whether it's something you're creating or something you do that it's like, that actually is what's holding up other parts of your creative practice? What does that structure look like for you? I love it when you share your personal practice with me. It always means a ton, and I would love to hear about it below. If you enjoyed this video, it always means the world to me when you give it a thumbs up or subscribe so that you're here when the next video goes up. I would love that. Share it with someone you think might get something out of it. That always means a ton too. If you feel drawn to give or support in any way, you can find the link to my Etsy shop where I sell some of my art, and my Patreon too is down there. Otherwise, thank you so much for being here. I'm so glad that our paths crossed today, and I wish you so much joy in your journey. Namaste.